In August 2025, the United States dropped an economic bombshell on India: 50% tariffs. Overnight, billions of dollars in Indian exports became nearly impossible to sell in American markets. Textiles, pharmaceuticals, jewelry, leather goods all hit with crushing taxes. But this wasn't just about trade. This was about power, alliances, and a message being sent across the Pacific. Today, we're uncovering why Americans are targeting the Indian economy in 2025 and what it means for the future of global finance. On August 27, 2025, the United States imposed a staggering 50% tariff on key Indian exports. Let that sink in. Half the value of Indian goods entering America suddenly became tax. The sectors hit hardest: textiles, gems and jewelry, leather products, and pharmaceuticals. These aren't small industries. India's pharmaceutical sector alone supplies nearly 40% of generic drugs to the United States. Textiles and jewelry represent billions in annual exports. The impact was immediate. Indian manufacturers faced canceled orders. Exporters scrambled to find new markets. Stock prices tumbled. But here's the critical question: why would America, a longtime strategic partner of India, launch such an aggressive economic attack? The answer lies thousands of miles away in Moscow. India has been buying Russian oil, a lot of it. While Western nations imposed sanctions on Russia following geopolitical conflicts, India quietly became one of Russia's largest oil customers. Cheap Russian crude flooded Indian refineries, helping India's economy while undermining Western pressure on Moscow. From America's perspective, this was unacceptable. Every barrel of oil India bought from Russia was a dollar supporting a regime the West wanted isolated. The tariffs weren't really about textiles or pharmaceuticals. They were about leverage. America was sending a clear message: if you trade with our adversaries, there will be consequences. But the oil connection was only part of the story. India is a founding member of BRICS, the economic alliance that includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. In 2025, BRICS expanded further, adding new members and pushing for alternatives to the US dollar in international trade. For decades, the dollar has been the world's reserve currency, giving America enormous economic power. BRICS nations have been working to challenge that dominance, discussing trade in local currencies and creating alternative financial systems. India's participation in BRICS, combined with its Russian oil purchases, painted a picture for Washington. India was hedging its bets, playing both sides. America wanted India firmly in its camp, especially as a counterweight to China. The tariffs were economic pressure designed to force a choice. Let's talk about the trade relationship between these two giants. In fiscal year 2025, bilateral trade between the U.S. and India reached $132.2 billion. That's massive. But here's what really bothered Washington. India held a trade surplus of $40.8 billion. In simple terms, India was selling far more to America than it was buying back. American policymakers saw this imbalance as unfair, especially when India was simultaneously buying discounted Russian oil instead of more expensive American energy. The tariffs were partly about rebalancing this equation, forcing India to either buy more American goods or lose access to American markets. But the economic warfare didn't stop at tariffs. In addition to the tariffs, the United States sanctioned 6 Indian companies in 2025. Their crime: trading petroleum with Iran. Just like with Russia, America has maintained strict sanctions on Iran, trying to isolate the regime economically. These Indian companies, seeking profit opportunities, had been facilitating Iranian oil trade. Washington's response was swift and severe. Sanctions meant these companies were cut off from the U.S. financial system, unable to do business with American firms or access dollar transactions. This sent shockwaves through India's business community. The message was clear: the long arm of American economic power could reach anyone, anywhere, who violated U.S. interests. Put yourself in India's position. On one hand, you have the United States, the world's largest economy, a crucial trade partner, and a strategic ally in balancing China's rise. On the other hand, you have Russia, a historical friend offering cheap energy that your growing economy desperately needs. You're also part of BRICS, working with other emerging economies to create a more multipolar world order. India's foreign policy has always been about strategic autonomy, maintaining independence and not becoming anyone's junior partner. But in 2025, America was essentially saying, choose. The economic pressure was designed to make that choice inevitable. By late October 2025, something shifted. Both nations were nearing a trade deal. The proposed agreement would reduce those crushing 50% tariffs down to 15 to 16%, a level India could actually work with. But there was a condition. India had to significantly cut its dependency on Russian oil. This was the compromise. India would gradually reduce Russian oil imports, diversify its energy sources, and potentially buy more American energy. In return, America would ease the economic stranglehold. Interestingly, even during these economic tensions, both countries renewed their defense cooperation agreement on October 31, 2025. This shows the complexity of the relationship. Even while fighting economically, both nations recognized they needed each other strategically, especially regarding China. What's happening between America and India is a preview of the new global economic order. We're moving away from the post-Cold War era where America's word was law, toward a more fragmented world where emerging powers like India have real leverage. America is using economic weapons, tariffs and sanctions, to maintain its influence. India is trying to maximize its options, playing different powers against each other for the best deal. This isn't just about two countries. It's about whether the 21st century will be dominated by one superpower or multiple power centers. Every nation is watching this standoff, calculating their own positions. So why are Americans targeting the Indian economy in 2025? Because India represents the future, a rising power that refuses to simply follow Washington's lead. The tariffs, the sanctions, the pressure, it's all part of a high-stakes game where economic weapons have replaced military ones. The question isn't whether this conflict will be resolved, but what kind of world emerges from it. Will India bend to American pressure, or will it chart its own course? The answer will shape global economics for decades to come. If you want to understand the financial mysteries shaping our world, subscribe and hit that notification bell. The next chapter of this story is already being written.